This week on Dig Me Out. With your hosts, Jason Ziak and Tim Minichi.
Jay, this week we're back with another one of our patron-selected episodes. One of our patrons is joining us for their 12-month pick. And we are very excited, Jay, to welcome to the show Peter Hirsch. Welcome, Peter.
Peter! Hey. Nice to be here.
Joining us from outside of Portland and Salem, Oregon, Woodburn, Oregon. Quite a lot of musical happenings there. You said in the pre-show chat you moved there in the early 90s. I'm assuming then, you said you moved to Seattle and then you moved to Portland. You've been in the kind of the epicenter of music for the last 20 or so years. Perfect for this podcast.
Definitely, yeah. It's been pretty interesting to watch the growth and the decline throughout these last 20 years.
Definitely. Jay, before we get into all this episode, I want to mention we are currently in a sponsorship mode. Another way to put it, we're working with Sudio again on their Navoa
That's right.
inner ear wireless headphones, which people can check out by going to sudio.com. And if they use the code DMO, they get 15% off their purchase, which they can make with free shipping. And if they make their purchase in the month of December, it's a very nice gift box that everything comes in. So this is the second week of our cohabitation with Sudio. We've partnered up before. We like their products. We're partnering up again. Later in the show, we'll get into actually using the new Naveo. Did I say it right? Navea. No,
sounds right.
Navoa. I'm sorry, it's Navoa. When there's little dots and lines and stuff above letters, it always throws me off.
Right. Well, look, IKEA should straighten you out on that.
They should. I should be a pro by now. So, Peter, tell everyone what record you picked for this week.
I chose Eric Matthews' The Lateness of the Hour.
And how did you come upon this record?
I was living in Seattle and I was walking around, went into this, used clothing store that had, free stuff, whatever. Looked in this box, had a promo CD for this album, and living in Seattle, he was on the Sub Pop record label, and so I'd heard his name but I didn't know anything about it. Flipped over the promo CD and it happened to have Jason Faulkner was on the album, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get this because I'm a huge Jason Faulkner fan, and never regretted it. Freaking love this album so much. So I have to thank Jason Faulkner for introducing me sort of to this band, or to Eric Matthews.
Jay, had you listened to Eric Matthews before doing this episode?
No, I had never heard of him. And I'm kind of into some of that music, or have been in the past, so I was kind of surprised that I had never come across him.
I had heard the name, but I had not checked it out. I think I'd even seen the album covers, because they, especially for this one, it looked kind of familiar. And then again, that might be just a case of we might have had it at the radio station, and it might have just passed through the music department at some point, and I just, saw it but didn't connect with it, for whatever reason. So, I had not heard it either. So, do you know any history on Eric Matthews before we get into that?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, just any background on him?
Let's see. I know he was in a band called Cardinal before he went solo.
Yep.
Put out 2 albums on Sub Pop, and then disappeared for years. At least from his own releases, and then put out an EP, and then a few other albums after that. In the 2000s.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's originally from Compton, California, and he was in the man that you mentioned, Cardinal. He's with Richard Davies, who's an Australian multi-instrumentalist, I guess. Or sorry, not a songwriter, and so they did that together from, I guess, only a couple years. 93 they put out an EP, and then 94 there was an album, and then that album was reissued in 2005, and then they put out another record together in 2012 called Hymns, and then also in 93 he was in a band called Belt Buckle, which was with Bob Fay and Lou Barlow of Sebadoh. And then that's when, shortly after, he started recording for Sub Pop. The first two records, It's Heavy in Here, came out in 95. And then this album, The Lateness of the Hour, came out in 1997. And then, like you mentioned, he went on sort of a break. And from 97 to 2005, there was no output. And then in 2005, he put out 6 Kinds of Passion, Looking for an Exit. And then he's put out a couple of more records since then, and he's also been in a band called Sheloom.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much output they've had, but I think there's been a couple.
Just one album.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our folks over at Patreon, where you were a 12-month subscriber that earned you this, priceless gift of picking a record, they had some comments. Keith Sawyer said his first LP is a perfect zombie-style 60s orchestral psych pop throwback, tightly produced and executed. This one loses a little of the focus and energy, but still has some very fine songs. Everything's So Real, My Morning Parade, Becomes Dark Blue, Since the Wheel, Free. His 1994 Cardinal collaboration with Richard Davies still remains the best thing he's ever done. A class still stands to this day. And then Whitney Beeler said, I've never heard this, but I'm very interested to check it out. It's going to be tough for anything to beat Fanfare, the lead track on his debut. It's Heavy in Here. What a great song that is. And then he chimed in, this is more guitar pop oriented than the debut. Overall, I enjoy it more than his first one. Interesting. So Whitney and Keith at odds over their first and second records by Eric Matthews. People are going to go to patreon.com/dig me out to join us. You get to vote in polls and be eligible for things like our studio giveaway that'll be coming up very soon. So let's get into this record, The Lateness of the Hour by Eric Matthews. Jay, I'll start with you. Tell me one thing you liked about this record.
It's intimate. Even when obviously the quieter moments are, but even when the volume kicks up a little bit, it's still this very specific kind of sound. I guess everything must be very compressed. He sings in a almost whisper at times, so all of the music has to be kind of compressed and controlled in order to, I think, make that work from a recording standpoint. So you end up with this very intimate sounding record. So even when it's a band sound, it still has this very unique sound where you just feel like you're right. The music's like right on top of you and right in your, if you're listening to headphones, like right up in your ears. And then with that, I think vocally it's unique. I hear a little Lou Barlow in the vocals. I hear a little Elliott Smith, but there's a lot of harmonies going on, which I think is what makes it distinctive from those other artists that I just mentioned, in that it can be very lush, very pop oriented in terms of, or almost like Beach Boys-esque in terms of like how some of the harmonies come together. So I think from those two aspects, just the overall like intimacy of the record, and then combined with a very unique kind of vocal approach and harmonies, it's a very immersive record.
Yeah, I'll just echo that and say that I think the one thing that I really enjoyed about this record is just the sounds and how good everything sounds. It doesn't sound dated to me in terms of, we've said in the past episodes, this sounds like a 90s record. Like, this sounds as fresh as just about anything. Probably because there's not like a, like a typical like 90s electric guitar sound or snare sound or something, those sorts of things. This it's helped by the fact that it has, like you mentioned, the Beach Boys. I mean, there's this orchestral side of this record, and it's not just in the musical, what's there musically, it's also in his vocal melodies. They're very pronounced in a formal way that sound, they would be, this is a weird comparison, but like something like a Burt Bacharach, like these formal arranged like pop, orchestral pop songs. They're just, it's like nothing I've ever heard in some ways, which is both really cool. It's also kind of jarring because I'm just like staring at my, I was driving when I was listening to a lot of this record. And then when I was also at home with headphones on, I'm just like, how is this even being done? Like this, like some of these like string parts are so complex. And then I read that he's like, mastered like 6 different really hard instruments. So I guess that's, and then when you look at like the playing on the record, I mean, a lot of it is him. Jason Faulkner contributes guitar and bass and piano and drums on some tracks, and Tony Lash, who plays in Heat Miser, he played drums on a number of tracks. So, and then there's people who came in and played certain instruments, but a lot of this is Eric Matthews, and man, it's like, it is a real tour de force in terms of performance. And what's interesting is like some of these songs are real short, but they pack a lot of melody and a lot of arrangement into those songs. That's what makes them really interesting to listen to over and over again. So Peter, let me ask you, what are the highlights for you of this record?
Pretty much all of it. It's crazy. I used to listen to this album over and over and over again, and a lot of times I still do. One of my favorites is My Morning Parade. I actually used it during my wedding. One of my fun tracks, I love Dopiness. I don't know if you guys remember that one, but just real, I mean, it feels like you're on heroin. Pair of Cherry. I mean, I really love his vocal phrasing, and then the pop drumming, the pop guitar work. Like I said, with Jason Faulkner, you can kind of feel his magic all over it. Even if he's not on the track, you can still feel that. Zombies, as someone had mentioned in Patreon. So I think a lot of that just kind of creates getting away from what the 90s was and into mixing a lot of different genres. And then with the orchestral, his trumpet playing, and Jay, you mentioned about Elliott Smith, and Eric Matthews actually played on one of Elliott's tracks, the Needle in the Hay. He played trumpet on that, but when the album was released, they took that off, and they've since released that version with him trumpeting on it. And actually, Eric Matthews recorded the song himself, covered it on a Portland tribute to Elliott Smith. So anyhow, yeah, I can definitely hear Elliott Smith's vibe to this as well. So anyway,
the commitment to the orchestration was also a surprising and a highlight to me, in that there's a lot of bands that have used strings, obviously, in different have strayed from the traditional guitar, bass, drum format, but there's a couple songs in here where there's no guitar, bass, or drums. So to clear the air, I think it's all strings and horns and xylophone and other, it's very John Bryan. At least that was my touch point for it. And Festival Fun, I think, is another one where it almost sounds like a classical song, like a waltz, or like a classical waltz.
Dream 3 days, make your mistakes. Soon one day wake will seem fake, but the time is now to never ask how. When will you come join the festival fun?
There's a definite commitment here to, I guess, do whatever's right for the song. Like when the song calls for it to be a little bit more folky, he goes that direction. When it calls for it to be a little bit more of an alt, rock kind of feel, he does that. When it calls for it to be a classical song, he does that. It sort of spans whatever needs to be done. I guess within his talents and abilities, he's able to perform whatever instruments he needs to do whatever's right for the song, which was, I think, overall a highlight and somewhat unexpected. I guess going into this, just looking at the album cover and sort of, it's very unassuming. You don't quite know the depth that you're going to get into when you get into the record.
Have the tracks that you've grown to like, have they stayed the same from the beginning, or have your taste changed, and what are your particular favorites on the record, Peter?
No, they've all really stayed the same. I mean, it's like for me, it's like old school. You listen to a vinyl record, you listen from the front to back, flip it over, finish off the record, and it's I don't really go direct to certain songs. When I'm listening to it, I think it's just a freaking one of the best records put out from that era. I always go back to My Morning Parade because I really love the lyrics. Like talking about the tear going down the cheek, just the imagery and such like that. I think he has such pretty lyrics, some of it.
Jay, let's cut away from the Eric Matthews talk, and let's talk about Studio and the Navoa. Do I call them earphones? They're not headphones because they don't go on your head; they go in your ear. So they're earphones, right? We're talking about those. Partnered up with Studio.
Yep.
And this is week 2. I finally got mine, Jay.
Wow.
I know.
How'd you make that happen?
I yelled at UPS.
Did you have to drive to Finland?
I did have to. I did have to do some traveling to the Scandinavian countries.
Motherland.
Yeah. No, I just got on their customer service for 45 minutes and tried to negotiate having them rerouted back from the plane that they were going to be put on. So what I like to imagine is somebody was running across the tarmac at the Columbus airport, yelling, "Don't let that plane take off!" And they grabbed my package out and rerouted it back to me. So I get to talk about my Navoa earphones.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Well,
what do you think so far?
So like you mentioned, the packaging is amazing. The case that they come in, little hard shell case. I love that it shows the light of the earbuds charging and then changes color when they're fully charged. I love that they snap in with the magnets, so you know that they're like locked in. That's a really cool feature. I've never had headphones like this before. I know you're much more of a earphone guy than I am, so this is like a brand new experience for me.
I've never had wireless like this before.
Yeah,
but really, it's one of those things when you look at the picture, you're like, how do I know that they're in that case correctly and charging? But once you do it, you realize that there's magnets on either end, and it just kind of like pulls the headphone into the slot, and it all just lines up and works. So it's nice. Yeah,
it's very space age. I like it.
So you got a chance to listen to them?
I did, and it was easy to to not dock it, but to pair it up with my Bluetooth on my iPhone. So I had done it before with the tray and the Regent, so that was cool. And I tried them out. It sounded great. I only got a few minutes of, because I got them and then I had to charge it up, so I didn't get that much time with them. I know you've had like the last week now to try them out.
Yeah, Yeah, one of the things I wanted to mention is like with headphones like this, you have to remember there's no cord between them, and then they're very small. So if you've never used them, you're probably wondering, how do I know which one to put in one ear, and how does that work? And
Right.
so that it kind of walks you through. It has an audio prompt, so when you turn them on, it'll say, like right speaker on, and then it'll say connected, and then it'll say left speaker on. So it'll tell you, so you don't have to like look at the headphone to know which one's right and left. It'll actually correct you if they happen to be wrong, and tell you when you power them up that not only are they connected to each other, but also which one is the right one and which one is the left one, which is kind of nice. So yeah, sound wise, these are, so if we could do a little bit of education, because there's so many different kinds of headphones, and it's all in earphones, but it's all a little subjective, and they're all different and better at certain things than others.
Right.
So these are in ear, so they're actually going in your ear canal, and they use like a rubber kind of a fit to make sure that you get a good seal, because it's really important whenever you use any in-ear headphone that you get a good fit, because it really creates the sound. If it doesn't fit right, it's all going to sound very thin.
Right.
It needs to be like completely sealed. That way that you get good bass. But you don't want it so tight that it's uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
they give you 3 sizes of the little rubber pieces to kind of fit, try to find the right size for your ear. So I played around with those. I got a good, I found the medium was best for me. Using them from a sound standpoint, I think I like these the best of the 3 that we've tried from Studio. They are very isolating. Like when I got them in, I can't hear anything outside, which is great. And they don't have any sound like cancellation going on either. This is just pure fit. And then the bass is good. If you like a nice punchy bass, they definitely deliver that. I think the thing I like best about them is that often with in-ear headphones, the sound can be a little like it lacks depth, and like it doesn't feel like you're really listening to speakers. Like often it sounds like you're literally got a speaker in your ear canal, as opposed to you're sitting in a room, 6 feet away from bookshelf speakers, or you're at a show or you're watching a band in a room where the sound's bouncing off the walls and it sort of, feels live. These have a really nice, what's called sound stage. So the perception of space as you're listening to the music, which for in-ears is pretty impressive at this price point, especially because, like I said, often you don't get that. You get this like a little bit of a harsh kind of direct sound that's really hard in speakers that's small to get those to sound good. So I was really impressed with how good the soundstage was on these. So far, the convenience is amazing. It's just to be able to have these 2 little things that you sit in your ears, and there's no wires, no nothing. It's pretty nice. And then to have really good sound coming from them at that price point, so far so good. I'm really really happy with these. And I think if I had a pick of the 3, these would probably be the 3. These would probably be the ones I'd go with of the studios that we've tried.
And you mentioned about that price point. These are $109, and if you use the Dig Me Out code DMO, you get 15% off your purchase, which means you can get these for under $100 plus free shipping anywhere in the world. That's pretty cool for this quality of an earphone, a wireless Bluetooth. I mean, that's I don't know what the competition looks like, but that's pretty amazing. And I'll talk a little bit more about my experience with them as I have more time on our next episode. So I just want to share with people, you can go to studio.com to check out the various models that they have. The Nevea comes in black and white. And then you can also check out the tray, which we've discussed before. And then you can also check out the Regent, which we've checked out before, and they have some other models as well. And you can find them on Facebook at Studio Sweden. That's SUDIO Sweden. You can find them at Twitter at Studio Sweden, on Pinterest at Studio Sweden, and then just Studio on Instagram. And again, that's 15% off your purchase. Just use the code DMO and free shipping around the world. And of course, as we mentioned in the last episode, there is a gift box for purchases now being made for the holiday season. So everyone, feel free to check it out. There'll be links in the notes. And of course, Jay, we can't forget that if you are a patron over at patreon.com/digmeout, we're going to be giving away a pair of these Nivea earphones.
Yes, that's why we are plugging these so much, so we can free up some wares so that you can enjoy some free headphones. So not a bad deal. All you got to do is go support us, which I'm sure you want to do anyway, and you're automatically entered in a contest to win some headphones, and hopefully in the future we'll continue to be able to give away cool stuff.
We'll be doing that on the next show, actually. We'll be announcing the winner on episode 412. So tune in on whenever that comes out. We're professional. We know those things. On a Tuesday.
Yeah.
In December.
Definitely be on a Tuesday.
A Tuesday in December. There you go. And let's get back to our discussion on Eric Matthews.
Whispers in gray, lovers relay. No one can say that I love them more. You should know your place in this heart that breaks. At the center your way till black and last days. Yeah, you're one of the best I know. You shake your head. Believe your mind makes smile, go back to bed. If trust comes into what we share, promise everything's so real. If not, we'll tear.
All right, let's make the awkward transition into the things that we did not like about this record. Or we get to break Peter's heart. Hopefully not.
It's okay.
I'll say, Jay, something you brought up in the beginning. I was not in love with his vocals for the duration of the record. Like, at first I was like, this is an interesting vocal approach at the beginning. This, like, whispery, fey, really up close vocal. And I've heard people do that before, and you think, okay, well, it's something that they're doing for a particular song. And then you get into the record and you're like, oh no, this is how he sings.
Yeah.
Like, super close and really intimate. It kind of threw me for a loop. Like, the first time I listened to the record, I was like, I don't know if I like this. And because because it's so in your face in terms of the way it's produced, with with that whispery vocal being as loud as what would be like a fully throated vocal.
Yep.
That I was sort of off-put by it. I will say, after repeated listens, I think I kind of understood it more, and then I kind of eased back on my confusion with it. But I still, like, when I listen to it, I'm like, I wish there was a little bit... Like, he does, in certain songs, push the vocal a little bit to what I would describe as a full vocal delivery. It's few and far between. I wish I heard more of that. And I from what I've read, he's done that more on later records. So I don't know if that was simply a matter of him just not being comfortable singing that way, or if that was a stylistic choice, or what the reasoning was. I tend to think of people who sing real intimately as doing it in a sense of like bedroom recordings with like a 4-track, and like, you're doing this like close, but he's clearly like working on a very broad, big orchestral scale. So that's not the instance here, unless you're trying to meld like two worlds of like orchestral, over the top pop, and then very intimate bedroom recording vocal sound. I'm that part left me a little confused, but I liked it more the more I listened to the record.
Yeah, I'm with you, and to some degree in that. For me personally, this isn't my favorite type of vocal for a whole record. But I think I get it creatively. In that you can definitely tell he doesn't sing this way because it's the only way he can sing. I think some people who sing this way, like the bedroom recording, it's like that's the only way they can manage to get a song across. So that's just the way they sing. He's obviously able to like his melodies. He like Festival Fun. He sings exactly along with this. I think what's an oboe, and he's always on pitch and on key. So like he can probably sing in a lot of different ways, and it's not like a limitation. So I guess from a creative standpoint, I think I'm understanding what he's going for and the feeling he's going for, that intimacy and that closeness, kind of like in your head feeling. So from that standpoint, I get the concept. That doesn't necessarily mean that I always enjoy it. So,
Right.
To your point, after 13 songs, I have to be in a specific mood to like listen to this type of thing to really be able to get through all 45 minutes and enjoy every minute of it.
Right.
I think he does use harmonies a lot to elevate that kind of vocal approach, which is pretty successful. Again, and just the ability to be able to do the harmonies lets you know that he can sing. It's not a limitation. Again,
Right.
So I'm a little conflicted. Like as a creative person, I get it, and I appreciate what he's going for, and I think he's successful. It's just not successful for everybody. Not everybody's going to be able to like emotionally go for the whole ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at with it. I think I just want a little bit, like, for me to be able to really connect with it, I would need just some more, I guess, energy. Just some tracks that really kind of step over. They draw where he draws a line and then he steps over it and then kind of comes back, whether that be tempo or emotion or just different emoting. So he kind of stays in this one zone. I think that's the concept behind the record. I can't help but want a little bit more.
Yeah, that was my other issue, was that because the vocal is in a very specific and intimate way, or done in an intimate way, that I started paying more attention to like the tempo of the songs and that sort of thing, and the range of tempo is very narrow on this record. There's like mid-tempo to slow, and they're not that far off from each other. There's nothing that's up tempo on this record, and I just wish there was like just one where they pushed the tempo up just a little bit.
Yeah, even Everything So Real it approaches like a thicker kind of rock sound, but it's still fairly slow.
Yeah.
I think one of the things when I first started listening to this album, I felt the same way about his voice. It's kind of weird to me. And, it's after a few listens of it that it started to do that catchiness to it. So, and then I started listening to all the other instruments behind it, the guitars and the bass and just the layer upon layer and such like that. So I understand like how the vocals would be a little bit put off, but I think as the album grew on me, so did the understanding, like how the vocals worked, for this project.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely on the upswing, I would say, from when I first started listening to it in my appreciation for it. I think the thing that threw me was because he's doing this like whisper, and then he's also in his like natural voice, and then he's also doubling it with like a low harmony on some of the songs, that it creates this like weird vocal combination in certain parts where you get into like this. We had this happen on the Lusk album, actually, where because when the harmony comes in underneath, it makes it sound like a monster almost, or like evil.
Yeah, his low tone, he can get down there. Like I said, he's like, I don't know if it's an oboe or what it is, but he's singing like right down with that. On some of those tracks, and that's what I think the voice he's doing for those harmonies.
Let's talk a little bit. This came out on Sub Pop in, what was it, 95?
Sounds about right.
Sorry,
97?
97.
Yeah.
This didn't have a chance
on
mainstream radio. I can't see this. I mean, this is going up against Marilyn Manson and the second Foo Fighters record, and yeah, this is not a pop, a mainstream alternative radio. I could see this on college radio. This probably was played at our college radio station, but I don't see this as a record that would break through. You'd have to have like a perfect single with a radio edit in order to, and I don't think there's one. Even Everything So Real would not quite be right for radio, unless you guys hear something different.
No, I think that was the one thing about this album I agree with you with, is that there's singles on here, but not enough, at least not in that time period, to pull it onto the alternative stations at the time,
Right.
where people would care about it.
I guess I'm surprised though. It didn't get more notoriety from even the Elliott Smith level, even from the independent alternative level. I mean, obviously he benefited from the movie soundtrack that he did, or John Bryan or even Jason Faulkner. I don't know. This is like, to me, pretty obscure. Like, I'd never heard of this artist. I mean, I realized it was on Sub Pop, but at least it didn't even get to the level of some of those artists, which I think there's no reason why it shouldn't have.
I think Elliott Smith has a slightly more digestible vocal in the range that he sings, and it kind of crosses over a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
I think because Eric has this whisper going on for so much of the record, it just doesn't translate in. And I could see it definitely working on like a movie soundtrack in the same way that what Elliott Smith would.
Yeah.
But then it has to that also blew up because of from there to getting on radio at the time, and getting some sort of notoriety outside of the movie.
I also think they didn't know how to, much like a lot of all of Jason Faulkner's stuff, that when he was on a major label, that they didn't know how to market Eric Matthews to the radio stations.
Yeah. It's a narrow market, unfortunately, because really this should be played, alongside some more classical sounding rock, but you don't ever mix those two. No station plays, pet sound songs up against, songs from current day. That just doesn't happen. That's what would make sense.
They should have got him on a soundtrack, or that would be perfect. Way Amy Mann had a little bit of a blip of a resurgence there because of the soundtrack. Elliott Smith, John Bryan, all these artists we were talking about. I mean, they all worked very well that way. They had a cinematic feel to them. Obviously, he's got you can hear some of this stuff. It almost sounds like a score to a movie or a scene. It wouldn't be a stretch to imagine this as having worked in a late 90s movie.
Yeah, I looked over his discography and I really didn't see anything that would, like any movie that would have. I think there was like some very like indie type things, but there's no Gus Van Sant films showing up. So that definitely makes a difference. So let's talk about our overall ratings on this record. This will be interesting. Worthy album, better EP, decent single. Peter, I know where you're going to be at.
Yeah, it's full album.
It's a worthy album.
It's a worthy album, yeah.
Jay, worthy album, better EP, decent single.
Artistically, it's a full album. I think me personally, where I'm at with the record right now, it's an EP. It's a really strong EP. I would pick Pair of Cherry, To Clear in the Air, Everything So Real, The Pleasant Kind, No Gnashing Teeth. I could probably pick one more in there too, kind of round it out. But I kind of get everything that I like about him in this record in that handful of songs, and I'd be good with that. But I get creatively. I guess I won't say it doesn't work as a whole record. It just doesn't all connect with me personally as a whole record.
Yeah, this is a tough one because I feel the same way. I clearly understand like the quality and the like artistic statement that's being made, and I totally respect it. But on like a personal level, I don't quite connect with it, and maybe it's just something I would have to spend more time with, which doing our shows in this format doesn't always help. Trying to connect with something over a long period of time. It is something that I would come back to, and it is something that I'd like to check out other records of his. But yeah, I'm at more of an EP, probably about 5 songs that I would pick to want to listen to. I disagree with you on Dopiness. I did not care for that particular song.
It's a weird song. It really is. I know. I get it.
That one, there were just a couple like that one. The Pleasant Kind, I didn't care for. Festival Fun. It just his enunciation on that song. Sometimes he over enunciated a little bit, and it bothered me. So, but it was I guess only like 3 songs. I might be at an album when I think about it. Only like 3 or 4 songs that I didn't care for. So I guess I'm at like a 9-song album. I guess that's where I'm at.
Make a call here. Are you an album or an EP?
I'm at an album, 9 songs.
All right. Jeez.
Browbeat me.
That was rough getting there.
Peter, thank you for selecting this record and supporting the podcast.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks for letting me be on this podcast.
So how did you, of all the records, the millions of records that you could pick from, how did you land on this one?
That was really hard. You had a few that I was going to throw at you, but after the, no offense, scathing review you guys gave of I Love You, which was my first choice from years ago, I wanted to choose something that I figured you guys would probably like. This record has been playing just recently, just on my mind. And I'm friends with Eric actually on Facebook, so every now and then he shows up on my feed to talk about Star Wars, which is funny. Yeah, so it was just one of those things. I knew you guys like Jason Faulkner, and I figured you guys would appreciate this. So I wanted to throw something out that you would like too.
Good, cool.
I'll be totally honest. I don't remember that I Love You album. We basically,
That's okay, it's fair.
It's basically like the Men in Black. Jay, at the end of every season, Jay and I have our memories wiped, and then we just start the new season, and I don't remember anything that we did the previous year. So
we're gonna do like a meta Dig Me Out where we start reviewing our old reviews. We're gonna start digging up the albums we've already dug up.
That's not a bad idea.
It might be fun to revisit, like do a special episodes every now and then and revisit ones that maybe people really felt like we got wrong and see if after some time we feel differently about them.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. You don't have to worry about what I Love You. It's an acquired taste on that one. So
I'll take your word for that.
Yeah.
I might have to revisit it. It would be fun actually for us to do records and just do a new review and see if it in any way matches up with our original review without listening to the original review.
Oh, yeah, that would be good.
That'd be interesting.
See if we have evolved in the past 7 or 8 years as listeners, because we might have been just terrible reviewers at the time.
I think I think our tastes have definitely evolved a little bit, just reviewing this much music.
Oh, absolutely. So I want to remind everyone, Patreon.com is the place to go. Patreon.com/digmeout. That's where you go to get bonus content, to be entered into contests, and to vote in polls. And if you like what you heard, please consider leaving us some positive feedback at iTunes. Peter, do you want to plug anything? You got anything you want to tell people to go check out? Anything like that?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for joining us, Peter.
All right, thank you very much, you guys.
And thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of Dig Me Out.
Thanks for listening. To support the podcast, visit www.patreon.com/digmeout and become a monthly subscriber at www.digmeoutpodcast.com, where you can find links to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, as well as our merchandise store at Zazzle.com.